Welcome to the Vine Resources Podcast Show with your host, David Lawrence.
Welcome to another edition of the Vine Resources Podcast Show. Today, I'm delighted to have with us Cristina Alba. I'll let Cristina give us an introduction shortly, but Cristina is the CFO for OakNorth Bank. Cristina's based in London. Cristina, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Cristina, I wonder if you could share with our listeners a little bit about the business, OakNorth, and what your role is in the company.
Sure. So OakNorth is a company that was founded as a bank in the UK, as you said, in order to resolve the underserved market of debt financing access for entrepreneurs, mostly that are in growth mode. And that in the UK, we started in 2015 by offering bespoke finance solutions that were only available for big corporates or mid-capital market companies. So by doing a really fundamental analysis of what does this company do for a living, how much can they afford to pay in debt? So let's make sure that the loan repayments match their cash flow. So common sense. So that's what we are doing. Since 2015, we've achieved more than 2 billion of assets in the UK at this stage, and more than $500 million have already repaid. So we're really happy about that. And now, since last year, we are doing the same globally, but throughout the OakNorth platform, whereby OakNorth is a white label ability for credit decisioning and monitoring for any other banks or lenders around the world. And we've got now clients that range from banks in Malaysia, Germany, the US, Hungary, and Singapore. And then we are also launching more directly in the US. We're going to be contacting directly with borrowers and making sure that they obtain the right financing with the banks that are ready to lend to them. So that's basically what OakNorth does.
Fantastic. And that really is a phenomenal growth, given that, the business is only just over 4 years old. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, you've got upward of 425, 430 employees now, haven't you?
Yeah, 480 roughly at this stage. It keeps increasing every week.
Fantastic. And I'm sure it'd be interesting to hear about the challenges of going into the US market and all the different legislation across different states. But what's the future look like over the next couple of years? Where do you see the market going?
So over the next couple of years, in the UK first, we've got the short-term challenge of understanding what is Brexit going to do to the economy, to the entrepreneurs, our direct clients. So all the uncertainty that is dragging on since the beginning of this year, it makes them sometimes postpone some investment decisions, and then because they don't know what's going to happen in the near future or midterm future. So for the UK first is to unlock and get through what happens. Either way, it's either a hard Brexit or there's a good deal or not deal. But certainty is what, at this stage, all our clients, SMEs, are telling us they need. And the new potential clients are on the same side. Globally, it's more in relation to the trade agreements, what is happening within the big powerful countries, the US, China, what is the role that each one of them is playing, and what are the knock-down effects in the other countries. Because everybody's economies are plateauing into GDPs that grow no more than 2%. And now the China, that was the big tiger that was helping globally, growing at double digit for some time now, is coming down to the single digit and low single digit. So what is going to be the impact? How will we all adapt? What will happen to big corporates and what will happen to entrepreneurs? That's entrepreneurs. We see they will always exist because they are faster to adapt to changes because they don't have big legacy corporations and governances that they have to mobilize. So we believe they will be there, and we want to be here to support them.
Yeah, fantastic times. It sounds like there's an exciting roadmap ahead. Now, your London office is based in Soho, isn't it?
That's right. That's very exciting and eclectic. Yeah.
I mean, what a great place, and not a traditional place necessarily for some of the banks to be based in, but a fantastic place, I'm sure, for your staff as well. Cristina, can you tell us a little bit about what a typical day looks like in the business for you as the CFO?
Well, first, getting to the office at Soho. So I cycle to the office every day. And today I had a big puncture. So that was not great. But typically that does not happen. So typically I will get in and make sure I've got the updates on what is our liquidity position, what is our capital position, what are our disbursements expected for the day, and to make sure that we are compliant with all our management targets and ambitions and with what the regulator wants for us in the UK. Then I turn an eye into the platform as well to see what projects we have to make sure that they keep progressing so that the product globally keeps improving. And then later in the day when the US opens, then I make sure that we are all connected in terms of culture and product with the US as well. So that's broadly what happens. During the day, it goes from having an exco, then an ALCO, where the assets and liabilities are measured. Then once a month, we also have the board of directors. In between, I have to be meeting with banks. We have to ongoing challenge our processes. I lead initiatives to simplify, automate, and also motivate the rest of the employees with our B2Moms implementation and rollout, and make sure I'm in good terms with our communications department as well, that that we are all in sync. So typically there's always things that are unexpected, and it's how quick we react and resolve any unexpected thing, because there's nobody else to resolve it. It's a small company. When you're in a big corporation, sometimes you say, oh, if I do nothing, someone else is going to resolve it. That doesn't happen here. So we are a very small team, and we are all accountable. So we are one team. It's one of our values, core values. So that's very much, if there is something happens in the operational side or in the originations or on the credit side, I'll be helping my colleagues and leading initiatives if I have to fix something.
Now, I know you have quite an illustrious career in the financial services industry yourself, and your masters and university qualifications in the banking and retail market. But I'm curious, who perhaps has been an influence on you as a leader, and who perhaps has given you guidance? And can you share a little story behind that?
Probably the person who has influenced me most was not in the beginning of my career. The beginning of my career, what happened, I was having a series of managers, and what I was looking at them, it was, well, I like this from this one, this from another one. I used to go to management trainings and said, so who is your role model? And I was like, no one. I know what I will. I like this from this person, this from another person, and I certainly do not want to be this other person. So what not to be was probably determining more who I was becoming professionally in the beginning of my years. I started working 26 years ago, so that was a long time ago. And then when I was at GE Capital, probably the most influential leader that I had was Robert Greene. He had several CFO positions and ultimately was the CFO for GE Capital globally. And he was probably the leader that influenced me most, because he showed me as an example. So he was living it daily as an example, how to be happy every day in your job and be able that you have a good balance between personal and professional life, bringing into work part of your personal life without being a baggage, and going back home without bringing some of the issues that happen in the office. So by being personable, but being very thorough at the time of doing the work. So making sure that you perform and that you always try to do above and beyond, and your seat at the table and your voice and your right to have an opinion by delivering and making sure that you share and celebrate the good times. So I learned that from him, and I've been trying to follow that role model for many years now.
What do you think is important for you, particularly in the organisation now, from the top of the company, that really keeps your employees engaged? What are you doing in the company?
Well, we're doing a range of things, and you would be surprised for such a young and small company. There's quite a lot in place that I'm really proud to be part of. So there's an employee share scheme where employees can buy equity in the business, which makes everybody very aligned to what is the ultimate target. We also organize social activities. We did a barbecue the last weekend. We're going to organize going through the challenge of the 3 peaks as well. That's a long one. I'm not going to that one. But that's a good one as well. And then regularly, every week, we've got an all parties meeting where the founders are there in first line, sharing what's top of their minds, what's important for them now, and it's all very immediate and accessible. So that makes people be very engaged because our founders are very approachable, regardless of the number of people we are. We keep that weekly meeting, and that's extremely important. And now, since last year, we looked at who is a role model, who do we think has done a good thing. So Salesforce rolled out V2 Moms. That is a way of organizing your vision, your values, and your objectives in a way that they are understandable for everybody from the top of the house. So we're implementing those, and that is bringing people that it's not close to the top of the strategy, close to the strategy. So what am I doing that influences the ultimate strategy of the company? So I'm influencing in this way. So that's helpful as well.
Brilliant, fantastic. Lots going on to make it happen. What are you seeing in the marketplace, in the industry, in your industry? What's the biggest challenging facing business leaders right now?
Well, what I mentioned earlier, in the UK is Brexit, externally is the trade agreements, and then in the fintech space, it's the fact that there has not been a crisis for a while. And then regulators are concerned that probably some of the new fintechs could be taking excessive risks and they are not equipped from a capital point of view to face them. So that is a challenge that is out there in the sector. We are very well positioned to cope with that, but I know that in the sector where we are is a challenge. And then by being so global lately, if you don't have good systems that are agile, that can move quick, for example, we've got all our servers and information in AWS, that makes us fully iCloud hosted, so that gives us that flexibility that others that have been here for more decades don't have. So it's a combination of several things. I wouldn't say that it's just one thing. If it was just one challenge, there's very clever and capable minds out there that would have resolved it. It's a combination, and keeping the balance with all the conflicting priorities and challenges that we face every day.
What's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
Probably what I said earlier, just make sure that you perform what is expected that you do, but do it above and beyond. Don't do just what is expected from you. Do that extra mile that is gonna be appreciated from people around you, not only your managers, it's the people around you, your own team, your peers. And it's also going to make you happy because work it's one of the main sources of satisfaction if you are doing the job that you really like. And another piece is don't do a work you don't like, because then it's going to be detrimental to you and to the others.
Now, you mentioned earlier a little bit about the phenomenal growth of the business, particularly in the last year or two. I'm just curious how you help employees, a new employee, understand the culture of the company.
So our talent acquisition team is very ingrained and in contact with these V2 moms I was mentioning. What is the vision? What are the values of the company? And throughout all the interviewing process, that's very well articulated to any potential candidate, so that by the time they join, there is no surprise. Then once they've joined, we give them the welcome. They know what all functions are. So that's the way we keep it up. And the weekly calls and meetings that we are having are extremely helpful for everybody, hearing from the top, from the founders, what is important and what drives our ambition.
And what does diversity and inclusion mean to you?
Well, for us, so as I mentioned, we are in the UK, but we are also in other countries. So for us, having an ethnically diverse, gender diverse, age, seniority, experience, geographical diversity is extremely important. So we make sure that we have a variety of backgrounds as well. We have some people, we've had recently some people joining from very uniform banks and said, what a difference in the team here, where I used to be in a place where everybody had the same opinion. They had been educated in the same school somewhere in England, and they were all being in the same board school, and the opinions were all the same. So the business was not growing and was not being profitable. In our case, there is challenge, a lot of challenge, too much challenge sometimes, but that brings the best outcome on average of what we could do. So for us is to have that diversity of backgrounds, ethnics, gender, ages, seniority, and I could go on, but that's it. Non-uniform team is what we believe brings out the best.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. And look, I think, and forgive me, I should have asked at the start, but I think you grew up in Spain, didn't you?
Yes, but I know what does give it away. I mean, we have this perfect Glasgow accent. I don't know. No.
Well, look, the reason I asked you is, as I was, and you know, I wanted to ask you this. I just wonder if there was a story, perhaps from your childhood, that has influenced your work ethic in later life.
I don't think there's one story, but the fact I was born, educated, and raised all in Barcelona, that is a city that is in the northeast of Spain, in a very working environment, where at the time where I was growing, so I was born in 73, so at the time where I was growing, I could see from very young, there was a big petrol crisis, oil crisis, then another one in the 80s. I could see around me a lot of people, families that were impacted by the main source of income, losing their jobs because companies were shutting down, or because they were doing massive restructurings that ultimately you have to be very resourceful, very skilled, and change sector activity if you have to, but above all, what I was saying earlier as well, you have to perform above and beyond what is expected from you, because if a company is going under financial difficulties, of course they're going to look at the cost base, and then if anyone that is valuable to the company will remain, the company will make sure you are there. And if you're an entrepreneur, same thing. My parents were entrepreneurs as well, so they failed, so I've learned from those failures as well. So you have to make the right decisions. And being someone that is very committed, works and delivers on what has to be done and does the extra mile, I learned that very young, because I didn't want to be under financial difficulty on a personal level. And that was throughout. I don't think there was one only experience. There were many experiences that then many families ended up in the wrong side because of many problems.
What do you think the industry is going to look like in 5 years' time?
If I knew, I wouldn't be working, so I would be millionaire. I could sell the secret recipe. But to be fair, is a very difficult question, because on the lending space, that is where we are strong, you can see that there are dynamics that are completely opposite. Some countries have done banking sector concentration. Some other countries, like the Southern European countries, where there were dozens of banks and now there's a handful of banks that exist in each of those countries. You come to the UK, where at the same time the UK government wanted to open up to more new banks. You go to the US, where it's super atomized system, where you can have very old traditional regional and community banks that have not evolved for decades. And they've got then the top of the fintech as well, that it's playing in the same space but more specialized. So where it's going to go, because it's more global, I can see there's going to be more information. If it's going to be more consolidated or less consolidated, it's going to depend very much on what is the political agenda of each country.
What would you do if you were going back into your 20s and you had your time again, what's the one thing that you would say to yourself to do?
Well, I would say, well done you. Just make sure that everything you do in life makes you satisfied and happy with what you're doing, and you go to bed every night thinking, today I did the best I could.
I've got a final question for you. Obviously, more about your industry, and I know that you've generated a rapid customer base, and obviously the value of your loan book or business. I'm just curious, how do you go about, what are the differences and things that you need to do to really look after your customers, and what's important to you as a business around how you look after your customers?
We give extreme importance to customers, and we have regular surveys for customer satisfaction. And in the UK, it covers both deposits, because we've got around 40,000 depositors in the UK. And on the lending side, we also perform satisfaction surveys. We then also do the NPS measurement that goes across industries, and we focus on making sure that we don't have detractors, that we fix anything that the customer finds non-helpful for them and not value added. So we put the customer ahead of us. And one of the things that is important is that by making sure that we've got a sustainable business model, the customers will be happier, because we are not going to we will not let them down because of internal frictions. We just have to make sure that internally everything works smoothly, so that then they have the best experience they can.
Cristina, thank you so much for sharing your insights and some of the stories there. If people want to find out more about OakNorth or connect with yourself, what's the best way that they can do that?
Well, the best is to go to our website, oaknorth.com, and there's many ways to connect with us in there.
Fantastic. Cristina, thanks so much for joining us, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the year.
Thank you.
We really hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please take a moment to give us a review. 4 stars would be good, but 5 stars would be amazing.